My name is Costin. I'm the Director of Government Reform at the Illinois Policy Institute. And Illinois Policy is a nonprofit, nonpartisan, what's called a think tank. And basically what our goal is to transform Illinois and make Illinois first in economic outlook and job creation. And the way that we're going to achieve that is by transforming the liberty principles that we put into place. We do a lot of policy papers. And we have ideas for how to turn around the state of Illinois. And we transform that into marketable policies that can become law in Springfield. That's what our specialty is. Tonight, I am here to talk about the issue of transparency, which does play a key part in that goal. Before I get started, I just wanted to see a show of hands. How many people here are from either Lee County or Dixon? Almost everyone. Okay, so how many are just from Dixon? Okay, we have a number of people here from Dixon, which is great because I think that hearing the recent stories about Rita Crundwell and the alleged corruption of $53 million is a very good example of why transparency matters. At the Illinois Policy Institute, we have this project called the Local Transparency Project. And what it is we've created a 10-point checklist that is a best practices framework for local government entities to implement that are going to help really fight corruption. Some of the things on the checklist, does anyone have an idea? Because sometimes transparency is kind of a nebulous idea. What do you guys think would be important for a local government agency to be transparent? Does anyone have any suggestions? I'm looking forward to anyone in the audience saying, what's important for a local government entity to have on their website, per se? Where all the money goes. That's covering a lot of the categories that we cover. Anyone else have any other ideas?
Yeah.
Everything. That's a great suggestion. I like that. You guys are my favorite crowd, definitely. Specifically, the 10-point transparency checklist is it divides into roughly two different categories. One grouping is participatory information, and that's information like contact information for your elected officials and administrators. So if you have a question, you can contact them, and you can engage in the democratic process. It's also meeting information about what's going to be on the agenda tonight. What were the minutes for previous board meetings? Do you have access to the board packet that the board members do? And things like that. It also includes FOIA information. FOIA stands for Freedom of Information Act. And this is actually something that's required by state law. You're required to have online a process in which citizens can ask their government for information. And unfortunately, Lee County does not have that information on the website. Even currently, after many months of our organization trying to reach out to them to help them become more transparent, realize what the laws of the state are. The reason why that's so important, if you wanted to have a question about maybe they're building a bridge in town and you wanted to know if it was competitively bid or how much it cost the taxpayer, you can find that information out through FOIA. Also, we ask for budget information. So your plan for how you're going to spend money over the next fiscal year, and then audits after that to say, well, how did you perform over that year? Did you overspend what you budgeted? Did you underspend? Basically, so you can get information on how your tax dollars are being spent. Also includes expenditures, and this is a really good corruption fighting category. Expenditures is every single check that not the actual check, but a little note of where your money went. In Dixon, for example, every single credit card payment, if we were buying a $200,000 RV, maybe that would be important information to find out. But it's really, really important to have that type of information online proactively because, number one, it discourages corruption from happening in the first place. But number two, it gives citizens and the media the tools that they need to fight corruption if it is occurring. Also, one of the most popular categories of information that citizens are requesting across the state of Illinois, and where on the website they're looking at the most is salary and benefits for public employees. This is, in my opinion, the #1 area of public debate in the state of Illinois, whether we're talking about salaries or we're talking about the pension system. Having access to the information of what your public servants, remember they're serving you, having access to what they're being paid is really important so that you know as a taxpayer if you're getting a fair shake or not. Also, I heard someone earlier talk about nepotism, is that just last week, District 147, which is in the southwest suburbs of Chicago, we had a story of a former superintendent of war member get arrested for public corruption, and one of the things that they got charged with was that they were hiring a bunch of family members to be on the public payroll. And they didn't have that information on their website. That was something that wasn't generally known to the public. So that's really important for people to have, or for local government agencies to have on their website. Also in that instance, there was also trips that the family members of the superintendent went on to various different places, Florida, California, and that's in the expenditure reports. If they would have been posting that information online, citizens could be like, well, why are you going to a Outback Steakhouse in Florida, and why are the taxpayers in my area paying for that? This is a great way to ask questions about bad spending. Also, contracts online is another category. First of all, having all requests for proposals and bidding process online so that you can get more people to bid on your projects and hopefully lower costs. But also to have the contracts then of public employees. So all of your collective bargaining agreements should be online so that you know what is the deal that you have with your public employees. It's really important to know what are all the benefits. How many sick days do they get? How much vacation days do they get? Do they get to save those up over time? Or do they get to cash them out upon retirement? We see that this is a problem all over the state of Illinois. And going back to that District 147 example, the superintendent cashed out, it was over 350 days of sick pay, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars that he was getting paid out in accumulated sick pay that it turns out that he really didn't earn. So it's good to have that information online as well. Also, lobbying. It's really important to have lobbying information online. Some local agencies do lobbying of state government, federal government, and they're also members of taxpayer-funded lobbying associations. A little story about that here locally. I don't know if you've been following the news in the paper about transparency, Lee County, Dixon. There's been two different narratives going on. Dixon, shortly after the corruption scandal broke, in fact, the same day the corruption scandal broke, we did an audit of Dixon's website. And we found that Dixon didn't have a lot of these corruption-fighting tools, transparency tools, on their website. They didn't have salary and benefits online. They didn't have expenditures online. They didn't have, they only had one annual budget and the annual report online. They didn't have FOIA information online. They didn't have lobbying information online, no information about taxes and fees. A lot of opportunities were missed to fight corruption. But after sharing that story with Dixon and City of Dixon officials, they reached out to us and said, hey, Illinois Policy Institute, you have a framework here for what's the best practices. Help us be better. Help us reform our ways. Help us prevent this from happening again in the future. So we've been working with the City of Dixon. They actually enacted an ordinance that said in 6 months, which is going to be coming up in November, in 6 months, we must score 100% on the Illinois Policy Institute's 10-point transparency checklist. Now, that's a good story, and unfortunately it happened after the corruption scandal, and we wish it would have been done before, but obviously it's better than nothing. One way that it could have caught the corruption in Dixon, one of the things that we asked people to put online is a treasurer's report. And that treasurer's report shows the income coming in from the state, and also shows all the expenditures out to third parties and employees, etc. But that's going into a place like the City of Dixon. They will show you on the Department of Revenue site when they make a payment to the City of Dixon. You can find it on their website, and it simply would have been a process of, we have this treasurer's report online, which should be reporting accurately what we're receiving in from the state. Well, let's go to the state's website and double check that. That could have, now obviously there's a lot of factors there, but that could have allowed citizens like you and me, the media, other people that were looking from within the administration of the City of Dixon, because there's a lot of people in the City of Dixon who want to do the right thing, that are working for the City of Dixon. They could have found it out faster, and we could have avoided a lot of the problems that we saw with the Rita Crundwell scandal. Now, on the other hand, Lee County has been an interesting story too. We recently did an audit of 25 counties in northern Illinois, and we had various different responses in regards to transparency. We had counties like Kane County, who scored 100% on our checklist, to some people that had bare minimum on their website. Unfortunately, Lee County was much closer to that bare minimum. Their score was an 18 after we did the second audit. And so we released that information to the public. So basically, one of the obstacles that we did have in doing our project is that traditionally we send an email and try to contact all of the board members of any jurisdiction, in this case Lee County, to let them know what we did. We do a first audit, and then about 2 months later we'll do a second audit. And we give people the answers to our test. We give them, here's what you need to do to score 100. You have 2 months to work with us. We'd love to work with you. Unfortunately, because there was no emails online for Lee County's board members, a lot of board members didn't even know what was going on. So we actually had to go through a person that said, well, we promised to send this out to all the board members, and then we don't even know if that information ever got to all the board members until the results of the final audit came out and it got in the press. So when it did come out in the press, there were some very interesting responses from various Lee County board members, and it's not all of them, but like John Perone said, well, what did we do before computers? He was very hesitant in putting more information online, even though we do have the blessing of technology, computers, and the internet now. Perone also said later on that we've done exactly what we had to do, and that transparency is a lot of Mickey Mouse. Those comments are really foolish, I think, especially coming from the county, which within the last year had one of the biggest corruption scandals in Illinois history, if not national history, as far as one employee goes. And so that was very disappointing. But on top of that, they didn't even, Lee County, as far as I know, still isn't complying with state FOIA laws, which requires them to post information online about all their FOIA officers, how people can make that request, how long it takes for the county to respond. It's state law, it's not an Illinois Policy Institute law, and unfortunately they're not complying with that. So another thing that they said is that they went to a taxpayer-funded lobbying group, which is the United Counties Council of Illinois, and basically got a recommendation from them to do no more than the bare minimum that the state law requires. Never mind the fact that they weren't even following state laws. One of the things that we're asking for in our 10-point transparency checklist is for taxpayer-funded lobbying activities to be put online. So you have this secretive organization who doesn't want taxpayers to know that money from the taxpayers is going to their organization, making a recommendation saying you should not put that information online. That's a serious conflict of interest, right? But not all is lost. The Sauk Valley News, they have been reporting on what's been happening at the board meetings. And at the last board meeting, we actually had some positive developments. Board member Tom Demmer made some comments to the fact that the previous comments about transparency is a lot of Mickey Mouse, and some of the other comments undermines the credibility of the board. So what do we do now, and what can you do to help transform the way Lee County does business, how your local municipality does business, how school districts do business, is that I hope that people here tonight will become advocates for transparency. We have the framework, the 10-point transparency checklist, which you can get on our website, illinoispolicy.org, and I encourage you, everyone, to contact their elected officials, contact their administrators, and say, hey, we need to be more transparent. We shouldn't wait for another Rita Crunwell to happen. We can do this now, and we can help change the narrative in the state of Illinois. I have a personal goal. It may seem far-fetched. Illinois is currently ranked the 3rd most corrupt state out of all 58 states. No, just kidding, 50 states. But my goal is to flip that on its head. I want, maybe it's not 1 year or 5 years or 10 years, maybe it's 20 years down the road, but I think we should set a goal in our minds to make Illinois the place where government is the cleanest. And transparency is a huge, huge part of that. So I hope you will join our efforts. And later on, if you have any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer it. Please feel free to contact me after the meeting if you want to do something in regards to local transparency, whether it's in Dixon, Lee County, or anywhere else. We'd be more than willing to partner with you. Thank you.